General Cenobite backstory explained the Harrowers, Furaie, and Blood Brothers twist. Let's talk about one of the most commanding and terrifying figures in the Hellraiser mythos, the General. This isn't your average Cenobite. This is the one entrusted with Hell's most critical tasks. A high-ranking figure with authority granted directly by Leviathan, the General isn't just another soul-torn creature of pain and obsession. He's the leader of Hell's army, the executioner of Hell's grand design. And most terrifying of all, he might have once been someone's father. Who is the General? The General is a Cenobite unlike most others. Where creatures like Pinhead focus on discipline, sadomasochistic philosophy, and individual punishment, the General's role is militaristic. Strategy, control, obedience. His presence is commanding, his voice booming with absolute power, and his patience razor-thin. Created or transformed by Leviathan, the ruler of Hell's Labyrinth, the General was chosen to command its army. He doesn't just enforce Hell's rules. He enacts Leviathan's will on a strategic scale. When things go wrong, when a threat arises that could shatter Hell's cosmic hierarchy, Leviathan doesn't send Pinhead or Angelique. He sends the General. May 10th, 1992, the Lucky Six and the Harrowers. On Mother's Day 1992, the General faced one of his biggest assignments yet. A new group of human warriors, known as the Harrowers, had begun to disrupt Hell's activities on Earth. Their mission, to free a forgotten goddess called Mortman, a being so powerful, her resurrection could undo the carefully balanced order of pain and dominion that Leviathan had maintained for eons. This was no small threat. The Harrowers weren't just defying Hell. They were threatening to liberate parts of the multiverse from Leviathan's control. The General responded decisively. He issued a call to arms, summoning a ritual known as the Solving of the Puzzle Chamber. This chamber didn't summon Hell. It selected champions from it. 6 Cenobites were chosen, known as the Lucky Six. Merkova, Pinhead's lover, a powerful and tragic figure. Turpus, Cattleskull, Cowboy, Halo Blades, Fulgur. Together, they were tasked with destroying the Harrowers and halting Mortman's resurrection. But something went horribly wrong. The shocking defeat of the Lucky Six. The Harrowers fought back with brutal precision. 5 of the 6 Cenobites were dismembered, their mutilated bodies returned to Hell as a warning. Only Merkova survived, and even she was mortally wounded, returning to Hell with a kidnapped Harrower in tow. This was a stunning failure. For a Hell dimension so accustomed to dominance and fear, the idea that 5 hand-picked warriors could be destroyed shook the Labyrinth to its core. The General was stunned, Leviathan furious. But the General did not sulk. He acted. The birth of the Furaie. In a twisted blend of punishment and strategy, the General gathered the remains of the 5 fallen Cenobites and fused them into one abomination, Opicus Furaie, also known as the Furaie. This was no ordinary Cenobite. It was a composite monstrosity forged from the pain, power, and rage of 5 fallen demons. Sent back to Earth, the Furaie became the ultimate weapon against the Harrowers. The battle that followed was devastating. The Harrowers were pushed to the brink, unable to stand against the Furaie's overwhelming force. Then came Marty Sevenbirds. In a final act of sacrifice, Marty threw himself and the Furaie into Hell's deepest pit, obliterating the creature and ending his own life in the process. It was a decisive blow for both sides. The Furaie was gone. The Harrowers had survived, but at a terrible cost. Blood Brothers, the General's shocking identity. But the story doesn't end there. One of the Harrowers, Dublin Morse, was a former professor turned soldier of the goddess Mortman. His brother, Ryan, had been kidnapped by Cenobites and was halfway through his transformation. The Cenobites had reconfigured his body with nails, barbed wire, and jagged metal. Dublin managed to rescue him. Barely. He brought Ryan to a seedy underground operating room, run by criminal surgeons known for altering the faces of fugitives, and had the foreign materials surgically removed. Ryan's life was saved, but the trauma ran deep. Dublin brought his brother to a motel to recover, hoping that the worst was over. He was wrong. Ryan's puzzle box. While Dublin was out gathering supplies, Ryan did something unthinkable. He reached into his satchel and retrieved a jar of items, the twisted metal and nails that had been removed from his body. But there was something else too, a cyst taken from the base of his skull. Ryan dropped it into water, and it expanded, changing shape and density until it resembled a Le Marchand puzzle box. It wasn't just a growth, it was a smuggled gateway to Hell. By the time Dublin returned, Ryan had already solved the puzzle. A schism opened, and through it stepped the General. Dublin froze. He'd seen the general before, once in battle, once in visions. But never like this. The general removed his hood, and Dublin saw the truth. The general was his father. A family reunited in hell. Dublin instinctively activated his invisibility, one of the gifts given to him by Mortmain. But it didn't matter. The general and Ryan knew exactly where he was. Dublin tried to reason with his brother. This was not their father. This was something else. Something corrupted. But Ryan didn't care. He explained that he was dying. The trauma from the implanted puzzle box had done permanent damage. If he stayed on Earth, he would bleed out. The only way he could survive was by returning to hell. And he wanted Dublin to come with him. He reminded Dublin of the emptiness he'd carried since Ryan was taken, of how he'd dedicated his life to war and pain. But in hell, they could live forever together. The general watched his sons closely. He didn't demand, they had to choose. And Dublin chose his brother. Destiny awaits. The general smiled. He told his sons that he was proud of them. The transformation chamber awaited. The Cenobites were prepared to perform the final surgery, the final ritual. Dublin and Ryan were destined to become the final key in the grand war against Mortmain. It was all planned. From the beginning, Leviathan wanted not just warriors, but family, a trinity of pain, blood, and loyalty. The general, his sons, united in darkness. Hell had kept its promise. It had delivered all it offered, and more. The general's appearance and symbolism. Hell's military commander. The general is a Cenobite whose presence evokes both fear and reverence, not just because of his authority, but because of the striking, disciplined image he projects. Unlike many Cenobites who wear grotesque leather-bound fetishistic garb, the general's attire is surprisingly different and deeply symbolic of his role. His skin is pale blue, almost cold and cadaverous, giving him an otherworldly appearance that marks him as something ancient and far removed from the realm of the living. His head is shaved bald, and from the crown of his skull juts a massive spike, protruding straight upward like a twisted mockery of a military insignia. But that's not the only place where these brutal protrusions appear. Similar metallic spikes extend from his shoulders, elbows, and even ankles, almost as if they were grown or hammered into him during some horrific ceremony. They move with him unnaturally, clanking like armor, emphasizing his status as a weaponized enforcer of Leviathan's will. But perhaps the most disturbing element of his appearance is what he chooses to wear. Rather than adopting the traditional Cenobite leather ensemble that symbolizes pain, submission, and perverse discipline, the general wears an old military uniform, faded, stitched from unknown fabric, yet clearly modeled on formal army regalia. Adorning it are numerous medals and medallions, hanging from his chest and shoulders. These medals appear tarnished by time, yet their shapes and markings suggest recognition, honor, and high rank, symbols that would have held weight in the mortal world. This single choice of attire speaks volumes about the general's past life. It suggests he may once have been a high-ranking military officer, possibly even a general, before he solved a puzzle box and was claimed by Hell. Rather than erasing that identity, Leviathan amplified it, transforming him into a permanent commander within the Labyrinth's army. His transformation was not one of aesthetic punishment, but of role perfection. He wasn't just tortured, he was promoted. The result is terrifying. The general is a perfect blend of human discipline and Cenobitic horror. A tactician with no conscience, a father without mercy. A soldier eternally bound to Hell's war. His appearance doesn't just define his rank, it reminds every soul, living or damned, that Hell's order has a chain of command, and at the top stands the general. Conclusion: the rise of the general's bloodline. The general stands apart from other Cenobites, not just in rank, but in narrative depth. His story isn't about hooks or mutilation. It's about strategy, failure, resurrection, and the weaponization of family. His sons weren't just victims. They were soldiers in training, keys to a prophecy, living weapons forged by trauma and loyalty. From the defeat of the Lucky Six to the creation of the Furaie, from the motel room betrayal to the slow manipulation of Dublin and Ryan, the general shows us what happens when Hell plays the long game. And in the end, maybe the scariest part isn't that the general was once human. It's that he never stopped being a father, just one who answers to Leviathano. Thanks for watching. If you want more Hellraiser lore breakdowns, like the origins of Mortmain, the Harrowers, or the Engineer, let us know in the comments.